Hello and welcome to another in our series of training webinars for VITA Toolkit. In this webinar, we're going to show you how to create a record without a file. So if you want to create or capture information, and basically all you have is the metadata, you don't have a file, a document, a record to upload, how do you do that? Well, basically, the only difference between doing something with a file and without a file is what you click on. So if you go over to the left-hand side here, normally, if you're adding something that you have a file attached to, you would click on and upload file. In this case, all we have is the metadata that we want to create a record for. I don't have anything attached to it, so I'm just going to click on without a file. And this takes us to a window that should be familiar to most of you who have been using VITA for even a short time. The only differences will be you notice that there is no category here, in which case you can't indicate a file because you don't have one to upload. But what you do have is your usual field to enter your title. If you're creating a template, you would obviously click on that field. Publications, a lot of times you will have just an issue, metadata for the issue or the publication, but you don't have a representation of the publication itself. And of course, you want to indicate always your media type. So the only two fields we're going to be dealing with here are our title and media type, because what we're going to be doing is capturing metadata for a cemetery record. Now, the Ontario Genealogical Society has a database that must be approaching about 7,000 entries of cemeteries that volunteers in the branches throughout the province have captured information for all these cemeteries. Some of them are registered, some of them are unregistered. Unregistered is what they are specifically wanting to protect. So the type of information that they are capturing is very specific. Now, as you can see here, the only difference between this record and any record you would view in VITA is there is no representation. In other words, there's no photograph, there's no document, there's no image. So what they've done is they've captured the media type, item type, which is universal to all records in VITA. And in the notes field, this is where they put the pertinent data that they want to make sure is captured, not only for people who are searching for cemeteries, but also for the ministry, because they're the ones who are going to go out and do the research and check out any unregistered cemetery, graves, plots, what have you, to make sure that they do get a registration number, which goes a long way in protecting them from development. So as I said, their information is very specific. They also have very specific ID numbers that are attached to each and every cemetery that they do identify throughout the province. So they want to make sure that's captured. And they also want to make sure that each cemetery is mapped. So they use the geographic location mapping in VITA, and that gives people an idea where the cemetery can be located. Now, the GPS that we're using in VITA is not specific because there is an issue with standardization of GPS numbers. So what they've done is they use Google Maps, but it still gives you a general idea of where the cemetery can be found. And the other thing that they wanted to make sure that was captured was the fact that there is a provincial office library collection, and transcripts and copies of cemetery information can be viewed there, but you can also buy many of the transcripts. Some of them are sold through the e-store for the OGS, and some of them are sold by the branches themselves who are responsible for capturing the information. So this is another bit of pertinent information that they wanted to make sure was captured. And of course, as always, your agency contact information is on the bottom here. So a lot of this is not any different than when you're adding something with a record. It's just the way you start out, as I demonstrated a few minutes ago, is you just click on a record without a file. But let's go back in and let's walk through the process on how you just capture the metadata when you're not attaching anything. And the first thing we want to do is add our title. In this case, it is St. Mary's Roman Catholic Cemetery. And we're not going to worry about these fields right now because we're not dealing with anything that's pertinent here. We do want to make sure that we have the right media type. Now again, when you're setting up your agency, you can set up checklists, so all you have to do is go and click off the appropriate media type, geolocation, item type, In this case, I want to check off a genealogical resource. Now, the other one I could check off as well as place, because obviously cemetery locations are places, but I'm going to do that when I go in and make that a secondary media type. So right now I'm going to click on Add Record. As you can see, the procedure for with or without a file are going to be very similar. In fact, they are similar. As you can see, the screen is the same for all records you're adding. Your descriptive screen is going to have your workflows along the top, and you're going to have your little red flags to make sure that you pay attention to certain fields in case you've missed something, because if you go away from the screen before you update your record, you're going to lose that information. You're going to have to go back and do it again. Now, making the record public. I'm going to make mine public right away. Do keep in mind that the indexing cycle for VITA is a half hour to an hour and a half, so depending where you are in the cycle will dictate how quickly your record will be visible on the public side. Now there's my media type that I just chose, and now I'm going to go in and add my secondary media type. Place. This is also something you can set up on your agency checklist. If you tend to work with the same types of media, then you can add those in. It just saves a little time in your workflow. Now my item type. If you take a little look through here, well, I'm dealing with cemeteries. This is what the information I'm collecting is about cemeteries, and cemetery is not in this checklist. So you always have the option of going in and entering it in this field down here. And I can see cemeteries is already there. So I've chosen that, and now it's been added to my item type list. Okay, moving on. The next field we want to pay attention to are our notes field. This is where all the pertinent metadata is going to be entered. So I'm just going to cheat a bit, and I'm going to go over and pretend I want to type in and capture all this information. So I'm going to cut and paste. And all my metadata for this particular cemetery is now captured. Now the rest of the fields we're not going to worry about because they're not appropriate to what we're doing. So now that I'm done, I'm going to, of course, update my record or my screen before I move away. And let's just take a look at what we have so far. Well, I have my media type, my item type, my pertinent data, and now we're going to move on to the rest of our screen so we continue adding on the information that we need to capture. My favorite screen is geography, and once again you can set up all your geographic locations when you do your agency setup. As you can see, we've added a whole bunch here to illustrate that you can add as many or as few as you need to. But Kingston is not in this checklist, so I have to go in and add it. So my constraint is correct. I have Ontario, Canada. So I can go in and add Kingston. And now it's mapped for me. And I'm not going to add any more locations because I'm only dealing with the one cemetery. And I'm going to update my screen. Now doing this is particularly useful for cemeteries or anything that you're adding a record to that could be very generalized. Perhaps you have a books, maybe many books, letters may have common names. Anything with a common name, such as a cemetery, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of St. Mary's cemeteries across Ontario, let alone the country. So being able to map it is going to help people identify this is precisely the cemetery they're looking for. If they're looking for a Kingston cemetery named St. Mary's, then this is the one. Okay, so we have our cemetery mapped. Now I'm going to go on to my admin screen. Now here's where my local identifier is going to go in. Again, this is very pertinent because each cemetery has its own identifying number that's assigned by the organization. So I'm going to pop that in here. And moving down, I'm not going to worry about these fields. We cover these when we did the webinar for adding and managing records in VITA. So if you're not sure on how to use these, do refer to that video, or you can always click on the little help icons and it'll tell you not only what type of information you should put in this field, whether or not it's publicly displayed. Okay, so the next field I want to pay attention to is the reproduction notes. If you recall, we had indicated here that there was a copy to view in the OGS library, but we also embedded a link into, I believe this goes to the OGS eStore. So this particular branch was selling their transcripts through the e-store. A lot of branches sell it themselves. So again, even if you're working with a partner agency and they perhaps have the originals, or they want to be known as the original resource for this item, you can always pop in a link there. It'll take them right to their specific page or website. So that's what we used this field for. And of course you have your permissions, which you again will set up during your agency checklist. Now this might not be appropriate or apropos to add here. The default is undecided, which basically lets the user know it's up to them to determine copyright or Creative Commons status. Now in the case of the cemetery transcripts, if we were putting any of those up, the cemetery transcripts that are created by the volunteers in each branch are copyrighted, so I would indicate that here. But this is just a cemetery information we are collecting, so it's not really pertinent here, so I'm not going to add that. But that's just to let you know that you do have the option of indicating that information here. So I've added what I need to, so I'm going to go on and update my screen. And the next thing I'm going to do is groups. Now why would you add this into groups? Well, again, if we take a look back, I have got everything. I did set this up for the OGS. We put everything into groups. So anything that people are looking for in Frontenac, as far as cemeteries, everything has now been aggregated. So it's kind of like one-stop shopping. They're all here. And again, groups, it's a good collection management practice to get into, because A, it aggregates all your records into one place, your like records. So if you have to do a search for a record, if you have them into groups, it'll make it far easier to search in that group rather than through your whole collection. Also down the line, if you want to do a virtual exhibit, create a slideshow, or do a feature group on your VITA homepage, then all you have to do is go to that group and pull the records from there, again, rather than searching through your whole collection. So I'm just going to add this to new group, and we also have a video up on how to manage groups, work with groups, and how to create groups. So if you want to start creating groups for your collection, then please refer to that video. It's actually quite easy. So again, I've added my record to my group and I want to update. Now finally, links. If you want to link out to a page, such as we did, if I go back in, we have, I'm going to go back a page. We have a link here that links out to the Kingston branch, because this is the branch that's responsible for the transcript for this cemetery. So basically, if I click on that, if I go and grab the URL, and I pop it in here, and of course you want to put in the name of the website that you're linking out to. And you can even grab a representation, the thumbnail, if you can grab the address for that. Let's go see if that works. Copy image address. I think this might be too big, but I just want to demonstrate how it works. And you add your, yeah, it's going to be big, but you can get the idea. So let's take a look what we have so far. Oh, it's not bad. So there is our link out to the Kingston website. There's representation for their website. There's the mapping of the cemetery, and you can do it map or satellite. And here's all the pertinent metadata that we wanted to capture about this particular item. So we have our media type, our item type, all our notes, and our local identifier, and of course our mapping. And if we wanted to add specific copyright statement or Creative Commons, we could do it here. And as always, we have your agency contact information at the bottom of the page. So basically, that is how you add a record without a file. Again, the only difference going back to the main menu is what you click on at the beginning. So if you don't have a file to attach, you simply click on without a file. It's quite simple. Again, we have our VITA help site. All our manuals are here, and it will walk you through the process in a little more detail on how to do different workflows in VITA. Okay, and that's it. Oh, one more thing. Actually, one thing that we did do, if I go back into my record, and how do you search records, we will do a video for that as well. We go into your top 100 records. Literally, this is the last 100 records that have been added to your collection. And you can see that we indicate whether it's a group you've added, an exhibit, maybe it's a template. In this case, we want to go to St. Romans Catholic Cemetery, which we just added. And there is the item record that the toolkit assigns for this particular record. It even gives us the date and time that this record was created. So at any point you find that you have a file to attach to this, you can go back in at any time and you can attach a file. And many of the cases for the OGS cemeteries, pictures of the cemetery gates, not of the individual headstones, but the cemetery gates, were collected and passed on to provincial office. So all you have to do is go into your file text screen. And again, this is covered in the initial series on how to add and manage files in VITA. And you simply click on associate a file with this record, and you walk through, you pick your category. In this case, if it's an image that you're adding, you want to pick the thumb regular and full, and you go and you add your file. I don't have a file to add right now, but the process is the same for any file that you want to add. So again, you have the option of going back in at any time after the fact and adding a file to that index record that originally did not have one. So that's the complete process of how you create a record without a file. Again, if you get stuck, please refer to the the VITA help site. And you can also contact us at help@vitatoolkit.ca if you have any technical issues or you just want some answers to questions. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Well, I hope you found that webinar helpful. We have all our new training videos up, and this one will be added shortly. Again, any ideas for training videos? If there's something here we're not covering, please do let us know that as well. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you found it useful. Bye for now.